We're so glad you're here today. Today we're going to hold a class on what we call Dementia Friends. Dementia Friends is an initiative across the United States for everyone to truly understand dementia. By 2050, it is said that half of the United States will be over the age of 65. So this is an initiative by the Alzheimer's Association to get everyone to understand dementia. So right now we're going to show you a quick video on what this truly involves.
Dementia. Do you know what it means? Perhaps you associate dementia with old age, or maybe it's a term that frightens you. Dementia is not a specific illness. It's a term that describes a wide range of symptoms associated with a decline in memory and thinking skills. These symptoms can become severe enough to affect someone's ability to perform everyday activities. Alzheimer's is a brain disease that causes symptoms of dementia. It accounts for 60 to 80% of all dementia cases. In fact, an estimated 5.4 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease. By 2050, the number of people aged 65 and older living with Alzheimer's disease is expected to increase to 13.8 million. It's likely you know someone or will encounter someone living with dementia in your community. At the bank, the grocery store, or a restaurant. Although advancing age is the greatest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's, even those who are younger can exhibit symptoms. Dementia affects each person differently. In the early stages, it may be difficult to recognize someone living with the disease because he or she is still independent and can engage in meaningful conversation. Potential signs include difficulty communicating, getting lost, becoming frustrated, exhibiting confusion, repeating words and phrases, poor judgment, and unusual or inappropriate behavior. Research shows that stigma surrounding dementia can lead to isolation for both those living with the disease as well as their family members. That's why it's so important to better understand dementia and how to help individuals continue to play a role in their community. When encountering a person with dementia, consider these tips. Treat the person with dignity and respect. Avoid talking past the person as if he or she isn't there. Be patient and supportive. Let the person know you're listening and trying to understand. Avoid criticizing or correcting. Offer comfort and reassurance. If he or she is having trouble communicating, reassure the individual that it's okay and encourage the person to continue. Living with value and purpose in the community is a human right. Communities must consider ways to make services more accessible for people living with dementia, just as they have made services more accessible to people with physical disabilities. Every segment of the community and every individual has a unique opportunity to make a significant difference in the lives of people living with dementia.
Hey, Mr. Frederickson, is Tooth there to go to the store?
Yeah.
Come on, I'll walk with you.
To learn more about how you and others can help those living with dementia remain engaged in the community, view our short videos that provide guidance for specific professions at dementiafriendsusa.org.
All right, dementiafriendsusa.org is a website that you all can access. There's a lot of great information on there, and you want to make sure that you do that. All right, let's open our booklets, and we're going to go through now and look at all of that, okay? Yes, ma'am.
What is the earliest age people have like symptoms?
What is the earliest age that you can have symptoms for? For Alzheimer's, which is more specific than dementia, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But the earliest age, they've actually seen 2-year-old twins that had dementia, had Alzheimer's. But most of the time, most people around the age of 65 is when you see that, all right? And I'll explain more of that later. All right, let's walk into the lesson for today. So you heard them say that dementia is not a specific disease, right? and it's not. So dementia is what we call the initial diagnosis, and dementia is the umbrella. So dementia is like cancer. You know how you have cancer and then you have skin cancer and breast cancer and all those types of cancers under it, right? Dementia is the umbrella. Dementia is the actual classification, okay? That's the classification for it. And then underneath it is where you start having the different types. Alzheimer's being the number one type of dementia. And we're going to learn about quite a number of those today. Let's also go ahead and jump in to what we should know about dementia. All right. So what we should know is that, as I said, Alzheimer's disease is the largest part of dementia. But there are also other types of dementia. Lewy body is often the type of dementia that you see with Parkinson's disease. Frontotemporal, that's right here in this big lobe of the brain, and that's where the dementia disease attacks, that's called frontotemporal. Vascular dementia is often a dementia that occurs when someone has had a heart attack or they have a lung issue, because it has very much to do with the vascular system in the body. So these types of dementia, but with Alzheimer's being the primary dementia. Let's look at normal aging or dementia. All right, in your handout you can see this very clearly. Let's look at normal aging first. Normal aging is things like, do you all ever forget somebody's name? You meet them for a second or a third time and you're like, oh, I know their name, right?
Yeah.
That's why in class we give you guys the little tents with your names on it, because for us, to be able to remember those names, okay? So normal aging is, oh gosh, I forgot my appointment, or I'm late to get somewhere, or I forgot somebody was coming over, or how many times do you forget where you put your keys?
A lot.
Me too, right? So that's normal aging. That is not anything that we worry about, all right? Some of the other things, however, if we go into actual early signs of dementia, a memory loss that disrupts daily life. A memory loss that disrupts daily life is, I forgot to eat all day long. I forgot to take my medicine all day long. And it's not like you were sick, and it's not like none of that. But in the course of a normal day, you forgot to eat all day long, okay? You forgot to shower for weeks on end, but you thought that you did, and you're convinced that you did. That's dementia, okay? Let's keep going. Making an occasional error when balancing a checkbook or when doing your bills. I've done that sometimes. I've paid bills twice, right? I thought it, and I found it laying there and I didn't make a note on it, so I turned around and I paid it again, right? That's normal aging, okay? What's not normal and what's an early sign of dementia is challenges in planning or solving problems. All right, so solving a problem, let's go back to the keys. I lost my keys. I misplaced my keys. I can't find them, all right? Tell me what you do when you cannot find your keys in the morning when you're headed out to work or headed out to class. What would you do?
Try to remember where you last put them, or look for them.
Retrace your steps even, right? Don't you go backwards? I found mine in the refrigerator one time because I opened the door and grabbed something to drink. I was so thirsty, and I had just come in from work and I put my keys in there. But because I was able to go backwards and retrace my steps, I found those keys in the refrigerator. Well, that's normal aging. We all just get so busy, we just get so many things on our mind that happens, all right? What's not normal is when we have the challenges in planning or solving the problem. So in essence, the dementia part is, I don't even think about retracing my steps. I don't even think about going back and looking for them, okay? I just figure they're lost. That's why often, because us as healthcare professionals, when we're working with someone with dementia, we need to look in trash cans before we throw them out, because hearing aids go in trash cans, Medicare cards go in trash cans. I mean, all kinds of things go in trash cans. So that's one of the big things we have to do to keep our patients with dementia safe, all right? Another normal aging is needing occasional help to use the settings on a microwave or to record a TV show or just to get the videos set up on a class, right? All right, so, you know, every once in a while you just can't figure it out, you need a little help, or somebody shows you how to do something new on your phone. That's normal, especially for our seniors. Look at what they've gone through. If you've got somebody who's 80 or 90 years old, I mean, just me. I had a beeper, then I had a bag phone, then I had a flip phone, now I got a new phone, all right? And that's like crazy, and everybody just always teases because they've seen me go through these things, okay? So you need that occasional help. The early signs of dementia is difficulty completing familiar tasks at home. So in essence, it doesn't have anything to do with my phone, all right? Let's say at home, no longer can I remember how to cook a meal. I used to be the world's greatest cook, and I would, you know, whip a meal together, and boy, it's Thanksgiving, and Grandma has always done the stuffing for Thanksgiving, right? Because Grandma's is different. She puts a little cranberry, she puts a little apple. I mean, it's good stuff, right? We all look forward to it. And when we get there, she forgot to turn the oven on. That's when you know that it's an early sign of dementia, okay? Confused about the day of the week, but recalling it later. I do that all the time. I'm like, I get up every morning and I got this new watch now that gives me the day of the week. Because I'm like, okay, what day is today? Because my days are so long and it just keeps going and you're answering the phone till 8, 9 o'clock at night. Some mornings I have to get up and go, okay, what day is it? All right, that's normal. That is not an issue. That's a busy life, right? Yeah. But when it's an early sign or symptom, it's confusion to place and time. Like not knowing where I am. Or not knowing, okay, so I got to go to work today, right? It's that kind of confusion. Or if it's dementia, it's not knowing that today is even any different than it was yesterday, okay? Next thing in normal aging is vision changes related to cataracts or related to like macular degeneration. Something that is a normal process, or in macular degeneration, that's an abnormal process within the eyes. But it is a condition or a disease process, okay? So that is normal aging. I tell you, I wear trifocals now. When I first started with glasses, you know, it was just one vision. But now I've got 3 levels, and I'm like, you know, watching on the stairs and how I'm walking and stuff, you know, okay? But that's normal aging. But an early sign of dementia is trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. Let me give you an example. Someone with a dementia, especially Alzheimer's, has a difficult time seeing from here down. So that's why they fall a lot. The other thing is our heads get so heavy as we bend over, you know, it gets heavier and heavier. So as our backs sort of curl over, we have a tendency to fall. But even if I'm like this, I can't see that floor. If I can't see that floor, I can fall, right? Yeah. Because I can't, you know, if you're walking along and all of a sudden there's a rock in your path and you're like, oh, when you move to the other side of the rock, then you don't, you know, you don't hit it or you don't twist your ankle or anything. But the problem is that as we actually potentially have dementia, then that's when we end up with having difficulty with this visuospatial, all right? Sometimes in the homes with someone with dementia, we'll tell them to put a black carpet, a black mat in front of a door if they constantly go out of the door and wander, because they think that black mat is a hole, okay? And so they won't cross that hole, okay? I've also seen it in facilities where they take doors and they paint them to look like a bookcase, or they paint them to look like something that doesn't have a handle on it to go out the door. It no longer looks like an exit, okay? And that helps because that person can't make that decision in their mind that it's not what they see, all right? That's dementia. All right, sometimes having trouble finding the right word. I'll tell you what, guys, I do that at home and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on with me? And I'll be like trying to come up with the word, but then 5 seconds later, when I try and move on, all of a sudden I've got the word, right? You got the word, all right? We all do that. Well, the problem is when the Alzheimer's Association says when you forget that you've forgotten. That's the problem. So in essence, you're trying to find that word, you can't find that word, and you don't even think about trying to find that word, right? It doesn't even come to you, and you don't even worry that you couldn't find that word. You forget that you have forgotten. That's when it's a dementia issue, all right? So, next thing, misplacing things from time to time and retracing your steps to find it. Like we talked about the keys. The issue is when you misplace things and you lose the ability to retrace your steps. That's dementia. All right, making a bad decision once in a while. That's just aging, that's life, right? We make bad decisions every once in a while. Oh man, I should not have bought that, okay? And so you're like, now what am I gonna do, right? But the issue is with someone with dementia, they have decreased or poor judgment. They can't understand truth versus non-truth. They don't understand the difference between the two. So they can't make rational decisions, okay? Next thing, sometimes feeling weary of work, family, and social obligations. I'll tell you, I had a couple weekends ago where I was just like, you know what? I need a little dawn time, okay? A little retail therapy. So I went to, Hobby Lobby and I just walked up and down every single aisle. I was just like, like not having to think. Do you know what I mean? Just decompressing, just breathing a little, listening to the music they play over the speakers, just whew, okay. The issue with dementia is instead you withdraw from work, social activities, families. It's not just a day here or there that you need that little bit of downtime. With dementia, you withdraw from everyone. You close yourself off and you don't want to see anyone. And the reason is because it's too hard to think of all the things about them. Like now I got to remember that they've got grandchildren, that I've got grandchildren and not only do I have their grandchildren, I now got to remember their names, okay? And oh my gosh, not only names, but there's my daughter. I think that's my daughter. Oh yeah, that's my daughter. And she's telling me all this stuff about these children that I can't figure out in my mind. And I got to remember that they're on a ball team and that they're doing great in school and now they're on to college. It's too much. So instead of trying to deal with it, they withdraw and close themselves off. That's dementia, okay? The next thing is developing very specific ways of doing things and becoming irritable when a routine is disrupted. Boy, they become very rigid, all right? So you like pop over in the middle of the day and you're like, hi mom, how you doing? And they're like, I'm in the middle of my show, right? I'm in the middle of my show. Dr. Phil is on and I'm in the middle of my show, all right? And you're like, oh my gosh, that's like totally like over the top, mom. I'm here, right? Haven't seen you in a week. I wanted to come back. But they're very rigid because to them, the only security they have and the only safety is a routine. And a routine, if routine is watching Dr. Phil at 11 o'clock in the morning for the next 4 hours because he comes on for however long on some of those other, TV sites, that's their routine. And when you disrupt it, they can become very aggressive in their response to you, okay? So that's that change in mood and personality, and it's because the brain is changing. If someone had brain cancer and they had outbursts or they had issues, we'd probably say, oh, that's got to be the brain change, or it's because they're dying. But what we don't understand is someone with dementia is also dying. Their brain is indeed dying. And that's the thing we have to try and remember, okay? So those are the differences between normal aging and aging, all right? Okay. All right, so let's go to communication. All right, under communication, this is how we would be able to actually communicate better with people with dementia. All right? Treat the person with dignity and respect. Now, guys, remember the very first day that you were in class and I came in and I talked about dignity and respect, making sure that you give your patients, your clients, your residents, dignity and respect. That's number one, no matter what we do, right? But it's even more important with dementia, because I remember being behind a lady in a grocery store and she just started urinating all over the floor. And everybody else turned away. But instead, I said, excuse me, like I went over away from her and I said, excuse me, can we get a mop? Can we blah, blah, blah? And I instructed the cashier, I said, why don't you help her? Because this was before COVID. So why don't you help her a little bit? Like I was mouthing it, help her with her money. Because she couldn't figure out, and I happen to know the cashier because I live in a small community up in, up north. And I'm like, okay, if we all work together, instead of then people moving out from behind me and going to other lanes because there's urine on the floor, and the other thing was, what I did was I followed her out into the parking lot because I just knew that she wouldn't be able to find her vehicle. And she didn't. She came out and she's just wandering. And she got 2 things at groceries. So I went over and I said, are you having trouble finding your car? Because I can't find mine. And she started laughing because what I did was associate with her, like they were saying on the video, not make them feel like, something's wrong. So I was like, okay, I can't find mine either. What if we find them together? And she was like, oh, that'd be great. I said, well, mine is a big white SUV. If you see it, yell at me. I said, what do you drive? And she even struggled to tell me what she drove. And then I said, well, sometimes I take my little key fob. I said, this is a secret. I take my little key fob and I push the red button. Do you have a red button on your key fob? And sure enough, she did. And I said, ooh, let's push the button and see what happens. And so she pushed the button and boy, we were standing about 3 feet from the car and it went off. I went, woo, we found it. Well, she was excited. But I didn't make her feel bad about losing the car. We did it together. And that's a great technique. Treat the person with dignity and respect. That's a great technique. Let's do it together. Oh, me too. I have that issue sometimes too. That's a great way to do it. And that shows dignity and respect in communication. All right? Be aware of your feelings. How do you feel that day? I'm telling you, if it's someone with dementia and maybe they even, I've had someone with dementia who just couldn't even communicate, they can sense. They are big sensors, like they can feel everything, okay? So if you got a ticket on your way to the job or on your way to see that patient with dementia, and you're like, oh, when you come in and I can't believe I got a ticket and it wasn't my fault, they're gonna know. They're gonna feel it. And because you're irritated, they're gonna be irritated, okay? So you have to watch that. Be aware of your feelings. Be patient and supportive. In that video, what did that young man do that was on the street with the older gentleman? Yeah, well, he didn't ask him where he's going. He said, Mr. Jones, are you going to the store? Today's Tuesday. Are you headed for the store? Right? He knew Mr. Jones' routine, so I'm doing it every day. And he helped out. Because if he had said, as we started thinking about this, if the young man had said, Mr. Jones, where are you going today? Obviously, Mr. Jones couldn't remember right where he was, right? So we need to be able to, help those kinds of things and think about, you really can't ask a lot of questions because they can't answer them, all right? So be patient and supportive. Sometimes it takes an hour to get to the bottom of what's going on, all right? Offer comfort and reassurance. Again, the young gentleman on the street really offered that reassurance. When I was helping the lady in the parking lot, it's that reassurance that you're not alone. We're going to be together, okay? Avoid criticizing and correcting. If you correct, what's going to happen?
They get frustrated because they know what they're thinking, but then you're coming misleading them.
Right. They at least have a thought process, but if you correct them, it's exactly what you said. They're going to just get upset. They're going to be, because they think they're right. The problem is that dementia, at some point, they do not realize they have dementia. It's everybody else that's causing the issue, okay? So do not criticize, all right, and do not correct. All right, the next thing that we have on here is avoid arguing. That's the other piece you want to do, is avoid arguing. And it's because you won't win. You will not win. They are very specific about what they know and what they think, and you cannot change them. I had a person one time who came out, I was getting ready to take them to the doctor's office, and they had their shoes on the wrong feet. Well, I couldn't take them like that, could I? Right? So I went in, but I knew if I said you had shoes on the wrong feet, what would they say to me?
No.
Absolutely not, I'm just fine. So what I did was I sat down, and I took my shoes off, and I put my shoes on the other way, and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I thought I'd wear my shoes just like you." And I stood up and I'm going like this, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I love the way you're wearing your shoes today, and I thought I'd do it." And they were like, "You can't wear your shoes like that. You look ridiculous." Because, I overdid it, of course. I had my feet all out on the side and everything. And I said, "Well, I tell you what, if you reverse yours, I'll reverse mine." And they did. So it was that thing of I didn't tell them wrong, I just told them I loved the way they did it. But once they saw the consequences, and when we got in, they said, "Oh, my shoes were hurting me a little bit, and I didn't understand why they were hurting," right? So it can be a really good thing to avoid that arguing. Offer a guess. That means that if someone is just, they're looking. They don't know exactly. They're looking. You start guessing. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? That's so important that as a healthcare professional, we know what our routine of our client is. Okay? Are you looking for a bill? Are you looking for a piece of paper? Are you looking for something to eat? Are you looking for a bathroom? Okay? Sometimes not even asking the question. You might want to say, "Hey, the bathroom's right here. The bathroom's right here. Hey, your chair's right here." So even instead of asking a question, because they might not be able to have the answer, but if you say, "Hey, your chair's right here," they're like, "Oh, okay." And they go over and sit down. So being able to offer a guess is wonderful, all right? Encourage nonverbal communication. It is so hard right now with masks and with not being able to touch people, because touch is so essential. It's so essential, okay, to be able to touch. Because we think about people with dementia, they tend to get very isolated. We've already said they pull into themselves and pull away from everyone, and so they become isolated. It's so important to encourage nonverbal communication. If we've got this mask on, our eyes better say everything. I've always talked with my hands, but I do it even more now because it gives a story of me talking. And people need that, especially with dementia, because otherwise they can't understand. Okay? All right. All right, the bookcase story. This is so incredible. This talks about what it's like to live with dementia and how we take our thought processes for granted. All right? So imagine a 70-year-old woman who has dementia. Now imagine that on this bookcase beside her, each book, every one of these beautiful books represents, look at this bottom line, represents her life. There's a love story in there because she was married for 65 years and he was an incredible man, and they met when they were in the military. He was in the military and he went away and he wrote her every day. We actually got the privilege of taking care of a couple like that. And it was amazing. She pulled out the box of these beautiful letters and to be able to see this true love story, okay? So there's a love story in one of those books, okay? There's a child book in there. There's all kinds of books. You know, you think about our lives. It really is incredible stories, right? And so each one of these books represents an incredible story in our life. So on the top shelf are memories of facts and skill, thinking, complex, complicated ways. And for people with dementia, the top or the outer part of the brain is damaged first. This left side is a healthy brain. This right side is an Alzheimer's brain. Okay, just Alzheimer's, not dementia. I want you to see it's an Alzheimer's brain. Do you see how much different it is?
Yeah.
So this outside here, all these little crevices, that's how communication gets communicated throughout the brain. These electrical impulses that we have, they travel through those little, we call them sulci. They travel all through there and are electrical impulses. Well, you can see on this side, there's not a whole lot of those little indentions to be able, in fact, we're starting to have big caverns. So an electrical impulse will go from here to here and stop because there's nothing for it to cross over to. There's no connection for it, okay? So let's say skills like math and using language and keeping one's behavior in check. These skills are also books on the top shelf. So you start losing those books little by little, all right? When dementia rocks the woman's bookcase, the books on the top shelf begin to fall out. They're no longer a full bookcase. They start to fall out and go away. You start losing those stories. And someone with dementia can't even remember those beautiful stories. I remember my father had Parkinson's and dementia. And I remember I'd say, hey, Dad, remember so-and-so? And it was a story he told me his whole life. There was a story about oatmeal cookies that my mom made. And he traveled from Florida to Canada with some of his buds, and the oatmeal cookies were in the trunk. Well, you know, old cars, back in the 1960s, old cars, there's a lot of gas. Well, by the time they got to Canada, those oatmeal cookies smelled like gas and tasted like gas. But my dad and his buds didn't mind. They ate them, okay? So I always use that as a story to talk to my dad about. Well, at the end stage of his dementia, he couldn't remember that story. I don't remember doing that. Who did we go with? You know, Dad, Uncle Bud. No, he didn't remember, okay? So those books begin to fall out of the bookcase, and the bookcase becomes less and less of the story of who you are. Emotions and feelings are deep within us, okay? And those emotions in the inner brain become instinct. So instead of us getting angry and being able to keep that in or come out, in a productive way, they can't do that anymore. That book just kind of opens up, and the emotion comes out because they can't control it any longer, all right? Feelings like love and happiness and frustration. As dementia continues to rock the bookcase, the books on these lower shelves stay for much longer. These are the things that she did as a child. These are things that are way back. And so she may begin to remember Mom, and she may start talking about Mom. We had a patient one time who, when we came to her, she wanted a bath. And when we got in the bath, in the bathtub, she said, "Where are my toys?" And it really shook me. It was right back at the very beginning when I started working with patients with dementia. And I was thinking, because this is a 70-year-old lady. And so there were no toys. There were no children in the house. So instead of saying, there are no toys and blah, 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 I said, well, just a minute. I went down to the kitchen and I got turkey basters and I got anything that would float. And I came back upstairs and I found like a little detergent and I put it in the bathtub so she could get some bubbles going. And she just had the best time, just popping those bubbles and squirting the turkey baster. And so instead of telling her that she was wrong, because in her bookcase, that bookcase for her, she only had those childhood memories left. That bookcase for her had all of those books had fallen out, okay? And in her brain, this side was on both sides. She very much had a brain that had looks like shriveled. Okay, it had completely shriveled. The bookcase explains different thinking skills, memories, effects of dementia, facts, complex thinking. And so most often, someone with dementia always has the ability to feel, but they don't always have the ability to think. Okay? All right. All right, let's take a look. There are 5 key messages with dementia friends that it's important for you to know. No matter what the situation, these 5 you can take away. All right? Let's look at this video and see what they are.
I found myself saying something or trying to say something and then I realized that the word didn't even fit in that I said or something like that. So I just kept, thinking about it, and it didn't happen every day. It didn't happen, hardly at all. And then it just kept getting a little bit worse and a little bit worse.
I think some of the family members thought something was off, I guess. Did any of them think dementia? Probably not.
When you used to doing things and doing it right and doing it, and all of a sudden, you can't remember this and you can't, what is your name? And, it's like a dark area. It's just like being in darkness,
And I think everybody that with this disease, people walk away from them. They're afraid they're going to catch it, like measles or mumps. And that bothers me that they do that.
I have to be aware that any moment my brain might not tell me where to go.
My first reaction was that when beat this disease.
I can't spell anything like I used to be able to just spell, you just write a check. Now I'm not clear what the thing is, how you do it or anything. All that stuff that I thought I was so good at is gone, or on the way gone.
Remembering names. I think that's the biggest issue with me.
People sometimes would kind of look at you kind of strange because I'm not saying what they want me to say or talk the way they want me to talk.
When I started putting my shirts on backwards, that was one of my early signs too.
Walking, that's why I have a cane now. And because I have a tendency to rock sideways. And I don't want to trip or fall.
Darkness is not good for me, and I tend to trip or fall, and my coordination isn't as it used to be.
Oh, I don't cook anymore either, because when I cook, and it doesn't matter if someone's in the house or not, I just start cooking and I forget about using, what do you use when you cook? The stove. I forget every time to turn it off. Every time I've cooked, no matter who's there.